The quiet courtroom was filled with the sound of soft crying from a small boy sitting in a chair too big for him. 7-year-old Leo, with messy brown hair and cheeks wet from tears, held tightly to his old teddy bear, Mr. Floofers. Across the room, a happy couple, the Andersons, were waiting eagerly. They had wanted to adopt a child for years, and Leo, with his bright eyes and shy smile, seemed just right for them. The judge, a kind woman with glasses, cleared her throat and spoke gently. "Leo Ramirez," she began, "do you know why you're here today?" Leo sniffled and whispered, "They want a new family." The judge nodded and explained the adoption process in simple words. But Leo seemed lost in his thoughts and fears. He didn't want a new family. He missed his old one, with the sounds of laughter and the smell of his mom's burnt toast in the mornings. Ms. Evans, the tired social worker who had seen many cases like this, spoke softly. "Leo, your parents, they can't take care of you right now." Hearing about his parents made Leo cry even more. His memories were jumbled, his parents fighting, a social worker coming, and then the sterile walls of the group home. He missed his mom's hugs, even though they often followed loud arguments. The Andersons, unaware of Leo's inner turmoil, leaned forward. Mrs. Anderson, excited, asked, "So, Leo, would you like to come home with us? We have a big house with a swing set and a dog named Sparky." Leo stayed quiet. He didn't care about swing sets or dogs. He just wanted his mom. Ms. Evans explained that Leo hadn't talked much since he arrived at the group home. His small world was falling apart. The judge, sensing the tension, asked Leo if he wanted to say anything. The room fell silent, and then suddenly, Leo screamed loudly. "No!" Leo cried, tears running down his face. "Please don't let them take me. I want Mommy." The Andersons exchanged worried looks. Mrs. Anderson whispered to her husband, "Maybe he just needs time to adjust." The judge seemed to understand how desperate Leo felt. She talked quietly with Ms. Evans and the state's lawyer. After a short discussion, she turned back to Leo. "Leo," she said warmly, "we can't make you go anywhere you don't want to go. You have a voice, and it's important to use it." Mrs. Anderson's smile faded. Mr. Anderson looked uncomfortable. They had hoped for a joyful homecoming, not a child rejecting their love. The judge continued, "Would you like some time to talk to Ms. Evans? Maybe you can tell her what kind of family you'd like." Leo's crying slowed to sniffles. He clung to Mr. Floofers, his eyes red and puffy. Ms. Evans knelt before him, her eyes kind. "Leo," she said gently, "tell me what your ideal family would be like." The next few days were filled with meetings with Ms. Evans. At first, Leo was hesitant, but he started to open up. He talked about his mom, sharing both happy and scary memories. He talked about his dad, who used to build blanket forts for him. He wished for someone to read him bedtime stories and not yell all the time. Ms. Evans listened patiently, taking notes and forming a picture of Leo's ideal family. Gradually, a new plan formed. Instead of a quick adoption, the judge arranged supervised visits with the Andersons, allowing Leo to get to know them in a safe, neutral place. The first visits were awkward. Leo stayed close to Ms. Evans, watching the Andersons with cautious eyes. Mrs. Anderson, always hopeful, tried to engage him with toys and games. Mr. Anderson, less sure of himself with kids, sat quietly, not knowing how to connect. It was Sparky, their playful golden retriever, who finally broke the ice. Sparky approached Leo with a wagging tail and a tennis ball. Leo, at first hesitant, couldn't resist Sparky's playful nature. Soon, they were rolling on the floor, with Sparky dropping the ball at Leo's giggling feet. For the first time since the courtroom outburst, a small smile appeared on Leo's face. As the visits continued, things became less awkward. The Andersons learned to be patient with Leo, allowing him to warm up to them slowly. They read him bedtime stories, played board games, and even let him help bake cookies, which reminded him of his mom. Meanwhile, Ms. Evans stayed in touch with Leo's parents. They were struggling with the problems that led to Leo being taken away, but they were trying hard. They attended parenting classes and therapy sessions, hoping to prove they could create a stable home for Leo. One day, Ms. Evans had a serious talk with Leo. She explained that the judge would soon decide his future. He could stay with the Andersons or return to his parents if they met certain conditions. "Who do you think would be the best family for you, Leo?" Ms. Evans asked gently. Leo, no longer the silent, tearful boy who clung to Mr. Fluffers, looked thoughtful. He thought about the Andersons, the swing set, and Sparky. He thought about his parents, their hugs, and the hope of being together again. "I miss Mommy and Daddy," he whispered, his voice shaking. "But Mrs. Anderson reads good stories, and Mr. Anderson smells like cookies." Ms. Evans smiled. "It's a tough decision, right?" Leo nodded, deep in thought. Then, with newfound determination, he asked, "Can I have both?" Ms. Evans felt sad for Leo's innocence. She explained that his situation was complicated and that his parents might not be ready to take care of him yet. Leo's eyes filled with tears, but he bravely held them back. "Then I want to stay with Ms. Evans," he said firmly, though his voice was small. "Maybe when Mommy and Daddy are ready, we can be a family." Ms. Evans hugged him tightly. The road ahead would be tough, involving social services, psychologists, and Leo's parents. But for the first time, Leo wasn't just surviving, he was starting to imagine a future filled with love and some normalcy. The next court hearing felt different. The Andersons, although disappointed, understood that Leo's wishes mattered. They promised to stay in touch, hoping to be a part of Leo's life someday. The judge, pleased with Leo's progress and new confidence, agreed to a temporary plan. Leo would stay with Ms. Evans and have supervised visits with his parents. They would work towards reuniting the family, a long and difficult process, but one with hope. As Leo left the courtroom holding Ms. Evans' hand, he looked back at his parents, seeing both fear and hope in their eyes. He didn't know what the future held, but he held Mr. Fluffers tightly, feeling braver now that he had found his voice. The journey to becoming a complete family was uncertain and full of challenges. But for the first time since his life fell apart, Leo felt a flicker of warmth. He wasn't alone. Ms. Evans, the Andersons, and maybe even his parents were all working towards a future where love, in its own way, could heal his broken heart. In the days after the courtroom outburst, Leo's life was a whirlwind. Ms. Evans, with her calm and patient nature, became a constant source of comfort. She understood his silence and the way he withdrew into himself. During their time together, Ms. Evans didn't push him to talk. Instead, they focused on simple activities, coloring, building with blocks, or just sitting quietly. One afternoon, Ms. Evans brought out a box of old photographs. As they sorted through them, Leo noticed a faded picture of a smiling woman with bright eyes and a younger, playful version of himself. "That's your mom," Ms. Evans said softly. Leo's lip trembled. He remembered his mom's laugh and how she used to braid his hair, humming off-key. He felt a bit ashamed, not fully understanding why, because he hadn't visited her much in the hospital, preferring to stay with his teddy bear, Mr. Fluffers. Ms. Evans noticed his feelings and gently said, "Hospitals can be scary, Leo. It's okay not to understand everything." They found another picture, this time of a man with a warm smile holding a little boy up high. "That's your dad," Ms. Evans said. Memories filled Leo's mind. His dad, who built blanket forts and read pirate stories, was also the one who had an angry voice that echoed through the house. In the following days, Leo began to talk more, first a little, then a lot. He spoke about his love for pirates, his mom's lullabies, and his fear when his parents fought. Ms. Evans listened without judging, her heart aching for the little boy with such heavy burdens. The first visit with the Andersons was tense. They were a middle-aged couple with big smiles and a house that smelled like cookies. Mrs. Anderson, full of energy, asked Leo lots of questions and offered him bright toys. Mr. Anderson, more reserved, sat stiffly, unsure how to interact with Leo. Leo clung to Ms. Evans, overwhelmed by the new place and new people. The visit was full of awkward silences, broken by Mrs. Anderson's cheery chatter. On the car ride back to the group home, Leo buried his face in Ms. Evans' shoulder. "They're nice," he said quietly, "but different." Ms. Evans assured him it was okay to have mixed feelings. The next few visits were similar, but gradually, a bond started to form. Leo, through his love for Sparky, the Andersons' goofy golden retriever, found a way to connect. Sparky, unaware of Leo's emotional struggles, showed unconditional love with slobbery kisses and endless tennis balls. Meanwhile, Ms. Evans worked tirelessly with Leo's parents. Their situation was tough. They were sorry for what had happened and were attending therapy and parenting classes, but recovery was a long journey. Ms. Evans visited them, sharing updates on Leo and his stories. Their once lively apartment now felt quietly desperate. One visit, Leo's mother broke down in tears. "I miss him so much," she cried. "I just want to be his mom again." Ms. Evans held her hand and said softly, "He misses you too, but he needs stability and a safe place." This conversation sparked determination in Leo's mother. She began attending support groups and therapy sessions more actively, making significant progress. It wasn't immediate, but it was a start, a flicker of hope in the darkness. One day, Ms. Evans sat Leo down for a serious talk. "The judge will decide soon, Leo," she said gently. "You could go with the Andersons, or maybe back to your parents if they show they can take care of you." Leo's eyes widened. The idea of leaving Ms. Evans, who had been his rock, scared him. But he also missed his parents and the idea of a complete family. "I miss Mommy and Daddy," he whispered, his voice cracking. "But Mrs. Anderson tells goodnight stories, and Mr. Anderson smells like cookies." Ms. Evans smiled at his honesty. "It's okay to feel both things, Leo," she said, hugging him. "It's a big decision, and there's no right or wrong answer." The next few days were tough for Leo. He had trouble sleeping and felt anxious. He started drawing pictures again, something he hadn't done since coming to the group home. One drawing showed a family holding hands, a house with a swing set, and a big dog wagging its tail. It was his dream, a mix of all his hopes and fears. The court hearing day arrived, the room filled with tension. Ms. Evans sat beside Leo, her hand on his shoulder for support. The Andersons were there, their smiles strained. Leo's parents looked determined and hopeful, holding hands tightly. The judge, a kind woman, spoke to Leo. "We've heard your story, Leo," she said warmly. "You're a brave boy, and what you think is important." Leo's heart pounded. He looked at the Andersons, then at his parents, feeling the weight of the decision. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. "I like Mrs. Anderson's stories and Mr. Anderson's cookies," he said firmly. "And I miss Mommy and Daddy. Can't we all be a family?" The courtroom fell silent. The judge explained, "Leo, the legal system doesn't quite work that way." Leo felt disappointed, but then a new idea came to him. "Maybe Ms. Evans can help us all be a family," he said, gaining confidence. "We can visit the Andersons and have cookies, and I can see Mommy and Daddy too." The judge smiled, impressed by Leo's courage. Ms. Evans felt a tear roll down her cheek. It was a bold idea, but it could work. The final decision was a compromise. Leo would stay with Ms. Evans for now while his parents worked towards getting him back. There would be supervised visits with them to rebuild their bond. The Andersons, though sad not to have Leo right away, agreed to stay in his life with regular visits, offering stability and a different kind of family. The road ahead wasn't easy. There were therapy sessions, visits from social workers, and many obstacles. Leo's parents, while making progress, still had their struggles. But they had a new determination and strong love driving them. One sunny afternoon, Leo was playing catch with Sparky in the Andersons' backyard. Mrs. Anderson sat on the porch swing, reading him a pirate story that reminded him of his dad's bedtime stories. Mr. Anderson was grilling burgers, and the smell of burnt cookies filled the air. Later that evening, curled up on the couch with Ms. Evans, Leo looked at their reflection in the TV screen. It's okay to have two families, right? He asked quietly. Ms. Evans smiled, feeling proud. It's more than okay, Leo, she said. It means you're loved by a lot of people. Leo looked back at the TV, a small smile on his lips. The future was uncertain, full of ups and downs. But it was also filled with love and hope, from a boy who dreamed of a family that might look different but felt like home.